everybody. Early happy autumn. I know it's not officially autumn, for about another week and a half or so, but, nature doesn't go by official. Nature just does what nature wants to do. So an early happy autumn to you. I thought I would connect with everybody today and have a discussion about an intensifying connection that we're having between Rahu and Venus in Magha Nakshatra, and what that might mean for you personally. While I'm on that subject, if you'd like a little more in-depth understanding of what this might mean for you personally, please do feel free to visit my astrological services page. You should see a link in the upper corner of this video right about this time that'll take you to my astrological services page. Let's talk a little bit about Magha Nakshatra and some of the implications of that. So, pull up a chair. This may go on, like 10, 15 minutes, but I figured it'd be really kind of nice to go into this in depth and also give a little bit of an astrology lesson in connection with that. So Magha Nakshatra is associated with the Pitris, or the ancestral deities. Now, what these particular energies are about, on one level, they're here to guide their progeny, right? Which is us, all of us, right? They're here to guide us. And they're here to guide us along our appropriate path. But they take a special approach in doing this. Number one, they don't like to interfere in physical manners unless it's absolutely necessary. Why? Well, they like for us to be able to work things out ourselves. Why is it important for us to work things out ourselves? Well, we're here, we're incarnated until we, work through all of our stuff, so to speak. We have an ego. That ego is very necessary for our interaction with our environment, right? Until we're ready to let go of that ego, at which point we can, be absorbed back into the infinite, right? But while we're still here going through our day-to-day life, it requires a strong will. And in order to have a strong will, you need to have a sense of individuality. So basically, the Pitris want us to take the right steps, but all of our own accord. But when we get it really wrong, they kind of step in, and sometimes they step in a really big way because they need to make sure that their voice is heard. But other than that, they like to drop subtle hints so that we pick up on those things all by our lonesome. Let's also talk about the fact that Magha Nakshatra is the first of the Tamasic nakshatras. Now, you may not know what Rajasic or Tamasic or Sattvic means, and I'm going to give you a very general understanding of that and not, an in-depth one. So, all you people who are going to put in my comment section, no, that's wrong. I know some of those other things are wrong, but I'm trying to give people a general understanding of these things, but they're so much deeper than this, okay? Tamasic energy is very dense energy. It's energy that can occasionally be problematic. It's also energy that can make things crystallize. It's kind of dull, heavy energy. Rajasic energy is very desirous energy. It's full of desire. It's sometimes very racy. So the first 9 nakshatras before Magha Nakshatra are Rajasic by nature. So they mark the primal spark of creation coming into being, taking form, becoming differentiated. We all are different individuals, right? That's the process of becoming differentiated, being aware of ourselves, being aware of the split within ourselves, the duality that exists within us. That's all part of the differentiation process, right? By the time the primal spark meets the position of Magha Nakshatra, then it has become more deeply encased in its material form. It's, bound in a human being, which doesn't mean it wasn't in a human being before that. I'm just trying to give a general idea, right? So it's bound in its human bondage, it's consciousness here. Somewhere inside of it, it has this memory of having been more deeply connected to the source. And then it recognizes that it's here. And on one level, it doesn't want to be here and it feels kind of robbed of its inherent divinity. And so it tries to reclaim the throne. And interestingly enough, Magha Nakshatra is signified by a palanquin, also by a throne. Palanquin is what they used to carry royalty on through their shoulders through a village, right? So it's connected to a throne. So the soul tries to regain the throne. But sometimes the way that it tries to regain that throne is in a very arrogant manner, in a very egotistical manner, right? It goes, right, well, I'm upset that, I've been robbed of this, so I'm just going to get back what is rightfully mine. Or it can follow a different path, which is the path of respect, which is the path of honoring what has come before, right? Which is the path of honoring ancestors, which is the path of honoring all of these things, right? We each have our own idea of tradition. We each have our own concept of what tradition means to us. And on one level, we can't ignore that. But if we look deeper, and maybe this is what we're being asked to do through this Rahu-Venus conjunction, we'll see that we all share a commonality of origin. Do we know where that first human being came from? Do we know where that first human spark came from? No. So why should we argue over our differences? When instead, we can, if we go back deeply enough, we can find a reason to get along. Right? So Magha Nakshatra can often make people act very prideful. Magha Nakshatra also gives the power to leave the body. Quite often with Magha Nakshatra, people will ignore their pain. People will ignore what they know they should do and do what they think they should do rather than what they know they should do. Right? What's the difference between that? Well, I know I should be doing this, but I think this might be a better idea right now. That's more of what I'm getting at in association with the contrast between thinking and knowing, right? So individuals may ignore what they know they should do and do what they think is going to further their position in the moment, right? Because they have the power to leave the body. They've left the body infinite. They're here in the body material, and they're working through those things, right? Or they can choose to go back to the body infinite and honor their higher wisdom, so to speak. I think that gives you a general understanding of Magha Nakshatra. Now, what I thought we'd do with Venus and Rahu is to give a general idea of some of the things that are going to be going on with this particular connection. But I thought it might also be good to look at some of the qualities of Rahu and Venus. That way I can give you a short astrology lesson, and we can also come to a deeper understanding of what this particular connection is all about. So let's talk about Rahu and Venus. Well, one thing that Venus is Venus relates to our conscious desires, right? Our conscious desires of the actions that we can take in our life to make our life much more enjoyable, right? Venus relates to those things that we value in life. The things that we value in order to live a good life, and that can actually be our ethics, right? I think a good life should include being able to get along with other people. That's an ethic of mine. That's a value of mine, right? So Venus represents our conscious desires. Rahu represents our unconscious desires or our compulsive desires. So when you have these two planets coming together, you have the conscious desire. Say, for instance, I have this conscious desire of wanting a cookie, right? So I've got this compulsive desire that's taking me over to the cookie jar across the room. That's what happens when Rahu and Venus come together, right? I know I use that cookie analogy all the time. Can't help it. But when conscious and compulsive come together, we end up having this desire that we're aware of, and we just can't seem to hold ourselves back from doing it. Or we seem to have this value that we know in our head, and we are going to compulsively push for that value. We're going to push for that value to be recognized or realized. And so this is all taking place in Magha Nakshatra. Magha Nakshatra, which is about tradition. Magha Nakshatra, which is about the ancestors. So in short, we can act in very prideful manners over our values, over our beliefs, on how to, best enjoy life or honor life, right? Venus, as per Jaimini astrology, is also the student. So we can get very prideful about those things that we have learned, right? And we can be very compulsive in our actions in association with those things that we've learned. Or we can accept that I don't really know anything. I just think that I know. And the more that I think that I know, the less I find out that I actually know, because if I'm involved in the process of thinking, then that means that on one level, I don't actually know because I'm thinking. Knowing is here. Thinking is here. Okay. So let's talk about some qualities of Rahu and Venus and how these two planets in Magha Nakshatra connecting with each other can bring about like some tension, right? So Venus, first of all, is a Somya Graha. What does Somya mean? Well, most of you would just say benefic, but Somya is a better term, I think, because Somya means gentle, right? Because benefic planets aren't always good. Sometimes they create some problems in a horoscope. But Somya planet, which means gentle, makes more sense because Somya planets achieve their aims with a state of ease or gentleness. But, sometimes too much of a good thing can be bad. It can make us lazy, right? So Venus is a Somya Graha, whereas Rahu is a Krura Graha, which most people say malefic, but not all malefic planets are bad. Krura, which means cruel, makes a little more sense, right? So basically, you've got a cruel planet and a planet that is gentle. So the gentle planet is going to naturally gravitate towards those things that it feels are going to be easiest for it to follow. That Krura Graha is going to make it so that some difficult experiences happen because of those things that we just naturally do or do with a state of ease. So there's a conflict that's there. Both Rahu and Ketu, though, are female grahas. So they like to receive, right? Rahu likes to, for lack of a better way to put it, likes to receive the recognition that it's taking the right steps in life, that it has a foundation from its whole life that it knows really well, and it's making, wise decisions in association with that. In short, that on one level that it's in control of the show, but we're never in control, right? And Venus likes to receive pleasure. It likes to receive enjoyment from its life, right? So in short, we want to be able to control our life in a manner that's going to bring enjoyment. Now, that's just a simple understanding of Rahu and Venus. I'm just trying to give you some simple layperson ideas of how this can impact each other. So Venus likes that enjoyment. Rahu likes to feel like it's in charge and that it knows the right things to do, right? But when these two planets come together, there's a lot, as I mentioned before, a lot of compulsiveness of things that we think are going to bring us enjoyment. The only thing is Rahu, as you'll see in a moment, things don't always go as planned with Rahu. As a matter of fact, they don't. Right? Okay. So Venus is a Brahmin. So the Brahmin grahas, they always look for inspiration. The Brahmin are the priest caste, right? And so they look for things that are inspiring. They're looking to improve upon things, so to speak. Rahu is an outcast. So when you have these two planets coming together, what you have is an outcast Brahmin. Right? We have beliefs, we have things that inspire us, that separate us from other people. They can separate us from other people if we're not conscious, if we're not aware, right? But we can bring our consciousness back to the fact that, we don't have to give in to our compulsions. Instead, we can be aware, more aware, and make actions based upon that. Now, Venus is Rajasic, so it moves with its desires. It can be very active with that. Rahu is tamasic. So you have Rajasic energy that wants to create something, and you have that tamasic energy which is creating resistance. So you have, one side going, yes, 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 and you have the other side going, no, right? So what happens when you have yes and no meeting? You have a lot of problems, don't you? Okay. Venus is a starry graha. Right. So basically, the starry grahas help us to understand our skills. right? It helps us to understand our individuality, what our skills and capabilities are. Now, Rahu is a dark graha. It just shows us our dark side. It shows us those things that are undeveloped. So in short, what you got is, wow, these are what my skills are. These are my skills based upon my values, based upon my ethics, based upon the way I think things should go. But oops, I must have gotten that wrong, right? Because really what I thought, I don't know anything about myself. It's all dark area to me. Right? This is undeveloped, but it can also mean that you find some underdeveloped talents, which also means if you don't give into your compulsive desires quite as much, and you don't let your conscious desires be overrun by compulsion, then you might actually get to the root of something through more of a state of surrender that helps you to have a more complete understanding of some new talents that you weren't aware of, through taking a new look at things rather than thinking that, well, I want to do this, or I want to become that, or this is who I am, or this is what I'm becoming. I am X, Y, or Z person, and everybody else from the A, B, and C camp are wrong. But us people in the X, Y, and Z camp, we're right, right? Well, you might actually find mixed in with that somewhere in the middle, there's a H, I, and J camp, right? Where the two camps meet, right? And so it helps us to find some skills or some ways of looking at things that we never looked at before when these two planets come together and we look at it in a conscious manner. Now, Venus is a biped planet. It likes to walk with its head raised high. That's what the bipeds do, right? So they're always looking around and, looking at the things that can improve their life with a sense of vision, with the capacity to look at things, and they're not, just kind of roaming around on the ground, finding anything that they can, like the quadrupeds, which is not necessarily bad. You need quadruped planets too. But quadruped planets are just going to feast off of what's on the ground. The biped planets are going to feast off of those things that are, fruit of the trees. Maybe it will feed off of some things on the ground, but it's going to go for the things that seem better for the moment. Okay. Now, Rahu is a planet that looks down. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at that. There is not an equivalent of the biped for Rahu. Okay, it's just Venus is a biped planet. But if that comes into contact with Rahu, all those things that we think are going to improve our life, they don't necessarily do so, right? So then we have the fact that Venus is a planet that looks sideways, right? So basically, sideways looking grahas, they're always looking at the obvious things that are going to improve their life. It's biped too, so it's looking at everything, that can improve its life, everything from things that are on the ground to things that are up above. But Rahu is a graha that looks down. So you have a planet that's kind of looking, at the best things to improve its life based upon its values, because it's Venus, and based upon its desires for fulfillment, right? Because it wants to receive fulfillment, and based upon those things which inspire it. But it is, kind of stumbling around sometimes. It's either looking up or it's looking down. And when it's looking down, it can't see those things that are up there. And when it's looking up, it might trip over something. And that's how Rahu and Venus, our compulsive desires and our conscious desires, can come against each other. And it doesn't make for the best of circumstances, but I should say really that any planetary combination has its positive qualities, right? So over the course of the next week and a half, because this particular connection is going to be going on between now and the 20th of September. And the most intensive period is, I think I may have said at the beginning of the video, is going to be between the 14th and the 17th. When Rahu and Venus occupy the same 3-degree, 20-minute section of the sky, which is a fancy way of saying, for those of you who are familiar with Vedic astrology, that they're occupying the same Navamsha, okay? And then it begins to weaken. The exactitude, if you use the true node system for judging the nodes, is going to be on the 15th. So in short, because of the particular areas of the nakshatra that these two planets are occupying during that time, we want to take action based upon our desires. Now, based upon our values too. But we may be a little bit prideful about our values, right? Rather than looking for the commonality that we might all have. We all come from the same source. That's one thing ancestors can teach us. If we trace ancestral lineages, if we were able to, which we can't yet, if we were able to trace ancestral lineage back to the dawn of time, we'd see that it all just came from the same thing, right? But yet we argue over tradition. We argue over what is right or wrong. We argue over values. We argue over teachings, everything from religion to, yes, I will say it, we argue over astrological calculations, when in reality, we all come from the same source and we don't need to argue about anything, right? But over the course of this time, it may make you, the individual, very prideful about your desires, feel as if you have entitlement to things which you may not actually have entitlement to, right? We all have entitlement to the universe, but some things are not in our destiny. And so with this Rahu-Venus connection, there can be a tendency towards going, this is meant for me and I'm going to take it, right? When in reality, it may not be meant for you. Or even if you were able to have it, it doesn't bring you the pleasure or the happiness that you might like for it to. You just think that it will, but you're not listening to your wisdom. You're not listening to your higher consciousness that's wanting you to tune into your higher senses, your intuition, so that you can be guided along the appropriate path. So in short, between now and the 20th, be very conscious of your desires. Be very conscious that you don't act on compulsion in relation to those things that you desire. Be very conscious of acting on compulsion in relation to tradition. Be very conscious on acting about what you think that you know, but instead be the perfect student that is willing to learn about those dark areas of yourself and the dark areas of humanity. Don't be prideful, be humble. That's going to do it for this look at the connection between Rahu and Venus going on between now and the 20th of September. If you would like to schedule a consultation with me so we can take a deeper look at this in association with your particular horoscope or anything else, please feel free to visit my astrological services page at the link above. Thank you, and please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.